Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Batul Zaro. I'm a senior engineer at the city, and I'm going to be giving an update on the East Palo Alto Library project. So a brief overview of my PowerPoint. I'm going to go through some background and then talk about the design request for proposals, then go through the scope of work, project costs, and next steps. So just a bit of background. As you know, the current East Palo Alto Library is located at 2415 University Avenue, which is a county-owned building, and it's also the location for the city's City Hall. And back in 2017, the city, San Mateo County, and San Mateo County Libraries JPA did a combined need assessment. And per the needs assessment, they determined that there was a need for a larger library facility. And then in 2018, the libraries JPA obtained Y Architects to do a feasibility study. And part of the feasibility study, they did a site feasibility assessment, which basically looked at the site next to the East Palo Alto Art Center, which is shown in the images to the right. And also as part of the study, a preliminary outreach was done and a conceptual design was created. And then after that, San Mateo County Library JPA presented an item to City Council on March 3rd, back in 2020. And then Council supported the proposed design. And Y Architect estimated that the project will be about 32.4 million for an approximately 24,000 square foot library. And I also just wanted to note that the library project is currently a City Council priority. So a bit about the design request for proposals. Staff put out the RFP late last year, and then we received 12 proposals, and the RFPs were ranked by engineering staff, planning staff, city manager office staff, and staff from San Mateo County Libraries. And interviews were conducted with the top 5 highest ranking architects, and then staff negotiated with the highest ranking consultant. So a bit about the scope of work. The first phase of the project will be conceptual design refinement. And the goal of this phase is basically to revisit the design that Y Architects came up with back in 2018. In addition, as part of the conceptual design refinement phase, a feasibility study will be done. And this will be looking into adding an additional 12,000 square feet of community space. So this would be in addition to the 24,000 square foot recommended library that Y Architects came up with. And the idea with this is to incorporate additional community space in the library, or potentially incorporate the space in the library building, and it would be city managed space and not space managed by the library's JPA. And so as part of the process, the architect will look into this and then we'll come up with some different design alternatives. And then additional public outreach and coordination will take place, as well as a site investigation. And the result of all this will be a schematic design and a cost analysis. And then we'll be bringing this back to City Council for approval. And then once we get approval on the schematic design, that's going to be the basis for design development. And as part of the design development phase, the architect will be creating the PS&E package for construction. And then they'll also be helping us with bid support when we move on to that phase. So a bit about project cost. The design for this project is about $2.7 million with an additional 10% contingency of $279,000. So the total project cost is about $3 million. And just wanted to note that this $3 million design estimate is based on the 24,000 square foot library design. So if additional community space is incorporated into the design, additional design funds may need to be allocated to design that space. So a bit about project next steps. First is design contract execution, which will take about 2 months. And then the next phase is conceptual design refinement, which will take about 5 months. And then once that phase is done, as I mentioned, we'll be coming back to City Council for approval. And then we'll be moving on to the design development phase, which will take a little over a year. And then we estimate that the design will be completed December 2025. And then the next phases will be bidding the project, which will take about 3 months, and then construction, which is estimated to take about 2 years, but those dates are tentative funding. So no funds have been allocated for construction or grants haven't been obtained. So once that construction funding gap is closed, we'll have timelines for these phases. So with that, I will pass it back. I'll stop sharing screen and pass it back to council for questions and comments.
Thank you, Batul. Very succinct, but also very informative and definitely exciting. So definitely proud and pleased to see you're spearheading this effort, or at least presenting this effort. So thank you so much. Council members, would you like to start us off with questions, initial questions, and then we can go to the public and go from there? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
Yeah, I think I'll start. So thank you for bringing this back and selecting the firm. I know you had a kind of an embarrassment of riches in terms of the firms that did apply. And there's one firm in particular I wish would have gotten selected, but certainly Knowles, and I can't remember the name of this firm.
Noel and Tam.
Yeah, is very competent. And, you know, they have other projects under their belt, including the Half Moon Bay project. But I do want to express a significant amount of concern around doing a feasibility analysis related to a 12,000-foot community center, which I say probably at $1,250 to $1,300 a square foot would add an additional $15 to $16 million to this project. We're already at a $30 to $35 million budget. To make this a $50 million project could mean that this project doesn't happen for quite some time. Moreover, if you look at the site, right, I can't see any other way to go but up. We have some major parking concerns. Yes, I understand we're going to try to apply TDM to this. Somewhat hard, somewhat difficult to do at the public building, but we should try. I don't really think that it makes sense at this point to delay this project anymore. To do a feasibility on a community center, and even though I understand that land is very difficult to come by, and then have a $50 million fundraising lift when, as it is now, we have essentially no money, zero, for the construction piece. And, you know, who knows how long that will take. I know we have members of the JPA here, the executive director. They might be able to tell us a little bit about the fundraising piece, at least on the library side. But I really do have some concerns with the scope creep in this, and I would suggest that we not do this, and that we look at what is our goal in our strategic priorities, which is to get this library done. We have the land, we have the money to do the architectural design, and we should concentrate on that and not try to use this site for a community center that we have no idea where we can get the money from. I mean, we have partners with the library that want to help us fundraise, but I'm not sure they're going to help us fundraise an additional 15 to 16 to $17 million for a community center that may not even be able to fit on the site. If you just, you know, look at the site plan, and, you know, what is occupied at this point by you know, the existing site as well as the parking, I just think it's going to be really hard to make it fit. So I would hope we would reconsider and say, thank you very much, but it is best to move forward propitiously and expeditiously with creating the schematic, you know, refining what we have here, going with the schematic design, and then continuing to look for the $35 million we need to build this.
Thank you for your comment. I think the main thought was, as part of the feasibility study, we would start to look into this, and it could potentially be identified that it's not infeasible. It wouldn't make sense to add a third floor, and then we would completely scrap it. But it would happen. This study would have to happen now, which is why we brought it up. But thank you for your comments on that.
Perhaps this is a kind of piggybacking off of my colleague's point, but Batul, stop me if this is not, you're able to answer this or anyone on staff, but I'm looking specifically at the actual proposal that our selected architects provided, and they talk about it in page 94 of the packet. One of the scope of services is the marketing of the design. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, would that design help to address some of the financial concerns that my colleague raises, or is that marketing of a different class, or is that referring to a different kind of marketing, I guess?
So in our design RFP, we did note that we would like the architect to help us close the construction funding gap, but we do have our consultant in the attendees. So James, maybe if you could try to promote them. It's Chris and Elaine. Maybe they can elaborate more on what was in the proposal.
Yeah, I really want to hear that because I've never heard of an architect doing fundraising, but okay, let's check it out.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Betul. Hi, good evening, council members. So what can I answer your question about the promotion then? Is that your question? What we would be very happy to do would be to use our design capabilities to produce materials that you could use for the fundraising purposes and for public and community outreach. And that would be sort of a normal part of our services to provide you with, illustrative both plans and renderings and things like that. So and also to participate in meetings with donors if it came to that. We're used to doing that, and that's something that we would be very happy to do.
To show we're serious and that we have substantial illustrations and sort of to present your expertise to any kind of financial body to just kind of buttress whatever proposal we're making. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yeah, whatever it takes to support you in the efforts.
Okay, got it. Any other questions on the board thus far? If not, what we can do.
Yeah, actually, I do have a question. So clearly we have a $3 million a contract here that we're approving. However, adding 12,000 square feet to this development is going to increase again the design scope and that cost. And certainly, I'd like to ask the principal of the firm, without holding you to a number, what do you believe that additional cost would be to add 12,000 square feet plus minus to this building?
The cost for design fees?
Yes, correct. Thank you. Forgive me.
Boy, it's really hard. It's really hard to say because there's an economy of scale. And we're not really sure if you manage to get the full 12,000 square feet, that would be a 50% increase in the size of the building, but it wouldn't be a 50% increase in the fees. It would probably be something more, maybe half of that, because of the fact that we're already doing the rest of the library. So another, it might be another $1 million in fees overall.
Thank you.
And that 12,000, just to confirm, looking at the packet, the background on the staff report, and again, thank you, Batul and Hamza and staff for the report. The needs assessment, and I'll just read it. The 2017 needs assessment recommended that in order to effectively meet the community services needs, the facility require an increase from the current 7,680 square feet to a total building size in the range of 22 to 27,000 square feet. So this 12,000 isn't meeting that need, but it's sort of what we're trying to achieve in sort of the middle point. Is that sort of, I guess maybe that's to you, Batul, is that sort of the philosophy behind that report or behind that number?
So the needs assessment determined the square footage of space needed for the library, and within that 24,000, about, I think it was like 1,300 square feet is dedicated to community space. I could actually pull up the conceptual design. It's a little bit easier to see. So there is some designated community space in the concept design, but it's just not a square footage that would address the community's need at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'll zoom in. So this is the first floor of the conceptual design, and this is the community resource center. And this would be the second floor. So it's this about 1,000 square feet, plus I think there's some like storage space would be community space. but the rest would be for other library sections.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I only asked that because, again, just trying to understand how much this proposed square foot would meet the needs, this would meet the needs of the community per that survey 6 years ago.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
if I could, the survey that was done years ago was really looking at it resulted in that 24,000 square foot conceptual. So that 24,000 square foot is believed to meet the community need. The 12,000 additional space is something that I actually asked the engineering team to explore the possibility of, based on some input that we received from council discussing how they wanted this to be a community center, and then also
Yeah.
acknowledging the reality of the volume of space that is city owned and city controlled, very little, and wanting to explore the possibility of this being a way to increase the city's controlled space in
Yeah.
Palo Alto. As Councilmember Romero said, fully aware that this will increase the cost of the design, increase the cost of the construction, and likely challenge the existing fundraising effort.
Yeah.
But it is something that I did not want to look back on in 5 years and say I didn't explore the possibility of, and that's why it was proposed.
Totally. And to the point of the architect, Chris, and I appreciate in the letter, at the last sentence in that first paragraph, this idea of creating a new town center. So this is sort of a once in a generation opportunity to really think big and then scaling down if need be. But I agree with that, right? Like there's a need for more community spaces. We're creating this building. And if it's a situation where the price tag's too high, right, we'll move that forward. But it sounds like staff is saying like, let's build that design to get a sense of how viable this is, and then move from there. Seems to me make a lot of sense on my opinion. But any other questions or comments? If not, maybe let's go to the public first, and then we'll come back. James, why don't you go ahead and ask if there's any members of the public who'd like to comment on this? For design.
Seeing none, Mayor, I didn't receive any speaker cards either.
Okay, all right. Back to council. Yes.
So I don't know if the mayor wants to give the opportunity to any of the library representatives to address us, but if they do want to, I mean, perhaps you want to think about that. But I did want to bring up a couple of other concerns that I have. There will be some existing natural synergies that occur between Epicenter, which I believe is like a 35,000 square foot space, somewhere in that vicinity, with kind of, and the connective tissue of their, open space amphitheater piece right across the way from the situated library as presently envisioned. I think those natural synergies lead to, this sense of, a strong destination, a strong kind of community presence, community uses, and all the energies that go with that. So I think just naturally, those two components kind of create some of this community center kind of atmosphere, let's call it that. I think an additional concern that I have, and perhaps the library JPA folks, Anne-Marie Spain, can answer this. There are some operational questions. That is to say, you have a library that has certain hours, certain requirements, related to upkeeping the building, operating it from 8 to 5. And we know that the library is very generous with their hours in East Palo Alto, and I hope they continue to be generous when we have a new library. But how does that intersect with the 12,000 square foot quote unquote community center that may or may not be laid out in such a way that the true kind of functional nature of both buildings works? And look, The principal of Chris Noel, I'm sure can probably figure that out. But I do think it creates additional problems in terms of the operation side. And I don't know how many of your libraries are in kind of mixed use, kind of cohabitated space, which this would have to be. I can't imagine you'd be able to add 12,000 square feet without going up, right? I just think it's going to be very difficult because we have the parking. So I think that is another reason why, for me, this just doesn't make any sense, and that we should move forward at this point with the library design and not assume that there will be some solution that drops from the sky that, one, resolves the operational issue, resolves some of the design concerns, and then also resolves the issue of additional fundraising, which will delay this library. So I'm through, but I don't know if the JP.
Please, if y'all absolutely, give us, y'all are here being patiently waiting. Please give us your 2 cents on this.
That one. Good evening, Mayor Lopez, members of the council. I'm Anne Marie Despain. I'm the library director. And some of you have been serving on the feasibility task force with the Foundation for San Mateo County Libraries. The foundation and the library JPA are very excited that we're at this point. I was happy to serve on the group that evaluated the proposals and very comfortable with the selection and excited to be at this place. There was a lot of different questions. I'm happy to answer any of those. I think I was also involved in the needs assessment back in 2017. It did result in a range. We did a lot of community engagement. It is a range from 24,000 to 27,000. Then when we looked at the feasibility of the site, it really teased out to 24,000 because of cost, because of parking, really site considerations. You want to make sure that there's some outdoor space. We did talk a lot with the Goldman Foundation and Epicenter about synergy, and do believe that there is some synergy. There's some complementary spaces. There's some duplication as well, as far as like maker spaces or digital labs. So we're excited to explore that. We do consider ourselves a community center, and we serve a lot of different community needs. Libraries have changed. I haven't had a chance to talk to city staff and understand just the request, but happy to explore those. And we are and have been looking at that fundraising goal of around 30 million, right? That's rapidly increasing as well. So, but other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess operations was the other one that came up. We're in a shared facility right here, and it does make things a little bit more complicated. North Fair Oaks Library is also in a shared facility with HSA. Most of our libraries, all of our other libraries are dedicated library. It doesn't mean that we don't have community spaces, community rooms that are available, and the cities utilize those after library hours. But we have worked very hard to expand our hours as well. So you'll continue to enjoy 7-day-a-week service. I think that answers all the questions, but I'm happy to answer any others, and really excited that we're at this point, and whatever we can do to support this moving forward.
Amen. James, is there a speaker that came up?
Yes, Miss Gail Wilkerson.
Have Ms. Wilkerson come up.
Hello. I like libraries. I love them. I remember the one next to that Chevron station. There was just the one room right there at Donahoe East Bay Shore off the freeway. You could only get about 2 people in there, and that was a librarian and somebody and me. But I love them. But I really want to stress, I have been to every library from, here all the way San Francisco over in East Bay. And they have changed. And please don't cut corners. And I heard one of you say it's going to cost about $50 million or something like that. Well, things increase if you waste time It's gonna increase. So get it done like yesterday and don't cut corners. I mean, that's the one thing I have against East Palo Alto, they ragtag and they piecemeal. I don't like that. You don't have to. Just go in there and get it done. I like a state-of-art library where it can be expanded for the future. That's the one thing, you know, that I see from all the other. I know we don't have that much land, but if you're going to put office buildings and everything where the citizens really can't use those, put something in there that they can use. And the more community orientated it is, the better. Look at Menlo Park, they're doing, well, they're redesigning Kelly Park over there. It was Onetta Harris's community center. They're changing it and they're expanding. Facebook is paying for it, I heard. But you got a chance here. Don't cut corners. The sky's the limit. Go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkerson. Much appreciated. James, do you have any more speakers?
I see none, Mayor.
Okay, all right. So council, we have a recommendation here to award and negotiate design services with our Nolan 10 architects, amount not to exceed 2.7 million, and establishes 10% contingency, as well as appropriating 3 million in CIP funding from 3 sources. Council, what is our pleasure? Are we comfortable at this juncture? Do we have any more concerns or comments that we'd like to give to staff before we move this forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you right now that I'm prepared to vote no if we're going to include the feasibility piece. Perhaps there are other council members that want to support this. Again, it will slow down the project. It will increase the project by at least $15 to $17 million. It will create operational issues. And the 2 libraries that I can think of that actually have figured out how to, mold those operational issues are libraries that are owned by the city and community centers that are run by the city. So I'm thinking about Mitchell Park, wonderful library that actually has a community center and at the same time also has a library. I use it a lot.
Mhm.
The other one is Bellhaven, right? And Bellhaven's being redone as a library / senior center / community center. But again, all operated not by the JPA, but operated by the city. And I think in cases like that, you don't have operational entanglements. And the other thing, and I am going to agree with Ms. Wilkerson on this one, the longer we wait, the more expensive this project is. So if we wind up adding 3, 4, 5 months
Right.
on feasibility for 12,000 square feet, which I find hard to believe that we're going to put it up, but we can get it on there and actually make all the rest of it work. We're just basically 5 months and for all I know, another 6% increase on construction costs because every month that we wait, we know that there's construction inflation.
So we're in a bit of a dilemma here. So we have 3 council members, and ideally, it would have been nice to have 5 so we can figure out how to break this. But we all have to be in agreement here. So Carlos, your ask is that
I mean, I could just make a motion in the middle. I don't know where the motion will go. Is that we should approve a very, very good firm. Chris, congratulations. One way or another, you'll get this. And that we should move forward with the design of the library, but exclude the feasibility piece so we could move directly into that process of, creating the schematics, getting this to a place where, again, we can market it easily and we can actually start all those construction drawings and making sure that we are ready to go. So when we, run into a bunch of money, we can,
Sure.
get that 30 million. So that's my motion. I don't know if there's a second.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that we go with that.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I'm still, my voice is still not
Take it.
back completely. Let's say we go forward and do this, because I'm also, oh gosh, if I tell you, then you guys are gonna know my age. But I mean, since I've been here, a little girl, since my parents moved us up here, I was 1. It's been the same library, like Ms. Wilkerson said. And I mean, it served us all very well, but yes, I do want to see it done.
Yeah.
So my question is, So let's say we go ahead and approve and we go forth with what we have. Can we always come back and perhaps in the near future add that component of creating that community space?
Looking to staff.
If my opinion is if we did want to look into adding the community space as part of the library site, it would need to happen now, because if we don't do it, we're just going to move forward with the moving, like developing the design that Y Architects came up with. So the conceptual design using that 24,000 square foot design, refining it, kind of having that schematic cost analysis ready to come back to council. So it wouldn't really make sense to do that and then try to do a feasibility study, because then you would be taking a couple steps back again and like redoing some work. So if it is something council would like staff to incorporate, now is the time. But if it's not something that council wants, this is also the time to remove that.
Right. And
I mean, adding it doesn't necessarily mean that that community space will be added. The goal of the feasibility study is to understand, do we have the space for additional community space? The result of the feasibility study may be that it's not feasible and it doesn't make sense to add it as part of the library.
Yeah. Okay.
If we were to punt this, could we have this at the 19th, at the March 19th meeting, or looking at Melvin, just in terms of our cadence for?
Through,
Yes.
I don't recommend you punt it if
Okay.
I mean, because we have 3 council members here, I believe we need 3 to approve.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So we need to all agree on this.
And that's if you guys don't want to agree with Councilmember Romero, then we'll be at a stalemate and we'll have to reconsider this at another date. I do want to add to Batul's comment about the feasibility study. It would be now. It would not make sense to try to come back in the future. But one consideration is how we go about fundraising, and what if we were to go to East Palo Alto voters to fundraise. One of the things that some of my people have been counseling me on is that a lot of community members are what's in it for me and additional community. And the library is a huge benefit to the computer. If you've been part of the feasibility studies where I've been touting this project and I'm very excited about it myself.
Right.
However, if we go to voters for something like a bond, it might potentially be something that they might be interested in, an additional community center. But to your question of punting it, that's really up to you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm kind of caught in between, but I do see the urgency too of getting it done, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And hopefully, I don't know how long our economic crisis is going to last and when it's going to get better, and if and when it's going to get better. But I hear also what you're saying about, trying to get the fundraising through our community and how much support we might have from them.
I think for the sake of, we're 3 people on this board, I think we need to move this, we need to expedite this in the spirit of that collegiality. I'm happy to second it, but I would like to see us, well, maybe I send for the feasibility study and for the bond, right? Like talking about how we can substantiate, the library in terms of getting this feasibility study, for that.
And if I could, I mean, I believe that there would be community support for the
for sure
square foot facility. I don't mean to raise any doubt about that.
Okay. All right. Well,
could I just make, and this is not necessarily compromise, but perhaps an option is if you have a 1,200, I think, to 1,300 square foot community room, Chris, if you look at that community room and say, look, What happens if we have a 2,500 square foot community room? I mean, I'm looking at, there's some overhangs there. Could you indeed increase that community space on the ground floor that might even be demisable, right? So you could have a couple of activities going on at the same time. I agree with Anne Marie Despain. Libraries are community centers. I mean, it's amazing what happens at libraries throughout this county, and the work that really the Library JPA is doing, right, is to bring people together. So, I mean, I think there's that possibility that maybe there's, call it a little bit of scope creep, scope creep, that, maybe you look at, because I'm looking at an overhang there that actually you could actually fill out. You guys are the architects. You can figure out how to make it beautiful and functional. Maybe that's like something that, we could look at. It adds a little bit of money, but basically you're going to be looking at that anyway, because you're going to be refining that. You're going to be refining that design. So, okay. So, sounds like we have a second.
I'm for it too.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion to move and seconded. All those, do you have enough direction for the motion, by the way? Sorry.
That motion for approval, so there is a line item for a feasibility study. You'd like that feasibility study to be taken out. So just, that's clear in the motion.
Yeah, I believe that's what Carlos Romero is what he said. So yeah, that it will be stricken.
And now move forward with schematics, or, with refining and then schematics, yeah.
And with the scope creep. All right, cool. Move second. All those in favor, please vote with a sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Batul. Thank you, staff. I'm really excited for this, and we'll figure out how to really beef this up. But really, I can't stress how much of a generational opportunity we have. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you. everybody.
Thank you.
Being so
Thank
patient.
you. Thank you
Even
very
in
much.
that long
I'm very
procession
excited.
items. Have a good night. Not
Good
for us
night.
though.